Okay, so I am working on bottling chicken. I have filled the rest of these jars. I've just got this one left. And all I'm doing, I purchased a 40-pound box of chicken when it was on sale. And this is just the fresh chicken breast. I'm just cleaning it up. I just use my kitchen scissors to clean it up, get all of the fat and the skin, anything off of it. And then I'm just cutting it into pieces. I'm just letting all that skin and stuff go right back into the box, and then I'm just cutting it up into pieces. They don't have to be tiny. Some people will say you need to do like 1-inch chunks. I cut mine into kind of strips or just chunks or however, just to fill the jar. They're all gonna cook. It's all gonna cook up great, and then as soon as you pull it out, you can just shred it right up. I guess if you're wanting to use it, if you're wanting it to be in chunks later, what happened to the rest of that piece? If you're wanting it to be in chunks later, then maybe you will want to cut it up into 1-inch chunks if you're going to pull it out like that. But when I do any of this type of, when I use any of this chicken, I just use it to shred right up. Okay, and this one isn't quite as full. I'll probably pull just a little bit out of maybe a couple of these just to even them up, because that is the end of my chicken. That's actually not bad. Okay, and now what I'm going to do after I wash my hands, okay, hands are washed, I'm going to take a knife and I'm just going to kind of rub it, go around the edges just to kind of try and pack things in, to try to get the air bubbles out the best I can. You're going to have some, but I like to kind of fill it in. Now, if you'll notice, there is nothing in here but chicken. I have no liquids. Just the chicken itself is going to put off all of the juices. Now here is a bottle. I've got 2 bottles left, and that's why I'm doing more chicken. And if you can see all the juice that's in there, this has no liquid added to it. It is strictly just the chicken and then the juices, its own natural juices. I will add 1 teaspoon of salt if I'm doing quarts, half a teaspoon of salt if I'm doing pints, and I will just add that right to the top of my jar to help preserve it. Okay, all of my jars are filled, ready to go, and all I'm going to do is just take 1 teaspoon of this, and this is just table salt. I just buy it in big bags, and sprinkle that over the top of each jar. And once the juices start coming with that, as you saw from that other jar, it'll just mix all right in. That salt will be all mixed in. Okay, now those are ready to go. I have a pot that just has a couple inches of water in the bottom of it, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heat up my lids. These are all wide mouth jars, so I'm just going to put in my 7. Your pressure canner, which is different than just a water bath canner, this has to be done in a pressure canner, will hold 7 quarts, or it will hold 14 pints. Now, if you have pints, there has to be a rack on the bottom of your pan. If you have a second rack, you can put it in between and then stack right on top. If you don't have a second rack, make sure when you put your jars in and you're doing pints and you want to double stack them, make sure that you offset them and you don't just set them right on top of the other jar, or sometimes they will crack. So I'm going to go ahead and put my pot on just on a medium low. I'm just letting, as soon as it comes up to a simmer, then these lids will be ready. In the meantime, I'm going to wipe around each ring to make sure the top of it is nice and clean. If any chicken juice or any salt has gotten on there, it won't seal. You will not have, your lid will be dirty and you won't be able to get a good seal. So I'm going to turn this on with my lids in the water. I'm going to let that come to a simmer while I wipe my lids, my rings, and then my jars, and then I will go ahead and put these lids and tighten down with the rings. So I'm going to do that. I'm just simply taking a rag, getting a clean spot for each, the top of each jar, and wiping that off in case there's any chicken juice or salt that happened to get on there, so that I get a nice good seal with my lids. Okay, I have my lids. They've been, if you can see steam coming off of the water. As soon as it came up to a simmer, you don't want to let them boil. Just get them simmering so that, and all it's going to do is soften up that seal, so they will have a, as I say seal, I mean right around the edge, that seal on the lid, so that it will create a seal on your lid, or against your jar. Okay, so I'm just going to take each of my lids, place them on my jar, and I just like to use my tongs to do that. This one is stuck together and there's going to be hot water in between it. Ooh, yep. You want to be careful not to touch the seal so that it's getting dirty. And we're good to go. Now we'll just add our rings onto each jar and tightly, but you should be able to just hand tighten them. Okay, and they're ready to go into our pressure canner. Now this is a 23-quart pressure canner. It's the Presto, and it will hold, like I said, 7 quarts or 14 pints. And we're going to add 2 to 3 inches, probably about 3 inches of water in the canner itself, and then place the jars in. Okay, so I've got about 2.5 inches of water. That was 1 gallon of water into a 23-quart. And then I'm gonna place my jars in my pot. Normally I would do this over on the stove. I'm just doing this to show you. You don't want them to touch. So try to keep them, place your center jar first, and then go ahead and place all the other jars around them. I will adjust this after it gets over to the stove because they will probably move as I am moving it over. But you want to try to, just like if you were doing a steam canner or a water bath, you want to adjust them so that they're actually not touching each other, which can cause them to crack. And there's nothing worse than opening a lid of a canner or a steam cooker or whatever you're doing and have a crack. It is so discouraging for all that work. This is going on the stove. Okay, I have placed my pot on my stove. I've got it on the largest burner. Some people will tell you that you cannot can on a flat top stove. I've done it for the last 20 years and it's worked great. I've never had things that have not sealed. Like every once in a while I'll have one possibly, but not like the whole batch. So yes, you can on a flat top stove. I've made sure that my lid was completely locked. I will unlock it to see. It is a tight fit. So when it goes down, and you want to make sure that you're locking it so that your pressure valve is going to be to the front. Oh my goodness. And completely tighten it so that it's all the way locked. As it builds pressure, we're trying to get it up to the PSI to be at 12. Some elevations may be a little bit different. Some you can go up to as high as 15. For here in Southern Utah, I go to a PSI of 12. Now the steam will start coming out and your little topper will start to rattle and shake. Once it hits 12, I'm going to be adjusting my heat. I've got it set to a high right now. And actually, as it hits about a 10, I will turn that down and try to just keep my temperature so that it stays at a level 12 on my PSI. Once it hits the 12, I'm gonna start my timer and set it for 90 minutes. Now, if they were just pint jars, you would go for 75, but with the quarts, you're gonna go for 90 minutes. Now, this also works great, same procedure if you wanna do beef. If you do stew meat or just a roast and cut it up into chunks, and then you can use that for shredded beef also. Okay, my pressure valve in the back is, you can't see it because of this, but it's starting to spit a little bit and starting to come up and down. Once that raises up because the pressure has built up, then our PSI will start to rise and our gauge will start to rock. So we'll just wait for that it'll probably take a couple minutes before that comes fully up and this pressure starts to come. Okay, my valve has popped up in the back and I'm starting to gain pressure. I am at about 3.5 right now. So once it hits 10, I'm gonna turn my heat down to about a medium high, and then I'll drop it down to about a medium to keep it on, to keep that pressure right around 12. If it is up just a little bit higher, but I try to keep it right at about 12. Okay, my timer just went off. It's cooked for the 90 minutes. If I look like I'm hammered, it's because it is now 1:10 in the morning. And we still have 30 minutes to let it sit for that pressure to come down before we can open the lid. So we'll go ahead and let it sit for 30 minutes and check and make sure that the pressure is down. The pressure valve on this other side should be completely flat. Okay, you're done cooking. You're now ready to release your steam by flipping your valve. I use a knife to just kind of tip that to the side, or a towel. Be careful, it's very hot. And I like to turn my vent on so that it's pulling that steam up there. Once everything has dropped, there's no more hissing, no more steam coming out. You can carefully open your lid. It always makes me nervous. Remove your chicken. I just like to set it over on a towel and then cover it with a towel so it stays warm. You'll hear lots of popping, that's good. After it's cooled, I write the date on. This will last for 3 to 5 years. Okay, as I have been storing today, I've had some questions come up about this process. The biggest one was, can you bottle and can on a glass top stove? And I had heard for years that you couldn't. It's all I've used for the past 25 years. So I'm going to say yes. I have had great success with it, and I will continue to do it. Second was, what's the difference between bottled chicken and just buying the cans of chicken? It's kind of like saying, what's the difference between buying bottled peaches or bottled pears and canned? There is a flavor difference, there is a texture difference. With the bottled fruit, a lot of times you get it more ripe when you do it yourself. So that wouldn't be an issue, but there is definitely a texture difference. I would compare canned chicken to more of the texture of tuna, whereas this bottled chicken is more like a baked or boiled chicken. So it's a different texture, different flavor. I do not care for canned chicken. The bottled chicken is a lot of work, but in my mind, so are bottled peaches, whereas it's similar in cost, but it's a lot more work, obviously. I just like the flavor better, and to me, it's worth it. I figured out with buying a lid, not including a jar or a ring that are reusable, but including the lid, the cost, getting my chicken at $1.79 a pound, I'm paying about 13 cents an ounce for my bottled chicken, whereas canned is about $2.23. So there's your cost difference. Whether it's worth it or not to you, that's gonna be up to you. So I hope you've learned a lot today, and if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot me a DM and follow me so you can see all the ways that I use this bottled chicken now.